Are you off today?
No, I gotta go in. It's not that I don't want to go in because I'm upset or miserable. It's just I'm tired.
Right.
I'm gonna go through a divorce suit. I didn't think that it would come to this. I'm not upset. I'm not mad. Everything's gonna fall into place for me.
Something wicked, wicked gonna come. Something wicked.
You had to have liked this one when you read it.
Oh, yeah. These are the ones that really motivate you. You know what I'm saying? They're not out doing anything wrong.
They only have 4 or 5 murders a year in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and for a lady like this, such low risk to be murdered, it's got to make people pretty worked up and mad.
Oh, yeah.
In 2016, Stacey Devine was in a strained marriage, looking to start a new chapter of her life when it was tragically cut short. Our victim, Stacey Devine, was 41 years old. She didn't drink. She didn't do drugs. She didn't hang out with bad people. All she did was work.
She's working 2 jobs. Everybody says she's a workaholic. Hard worker. And she was a good friend, doing people's hair and lending them money.
What a nice lady. Stacey was a fun-loving, generous soul, and everybody who loved her was left in disbelief when her body was discovered, strangled and dumped in a ditch along a secluded dirt road. What did you think about the way her body was found?
You know, I don't know if she's rolled down there, if she's carried like a fireman's carry down there. Her clothes don't indicate, there's no drag marks on her feet.
Stacey's body, car, and cell phone were all found dumped in different locations throughout the town. And the biggest mystery in this case is why. Was Stacey's death the result of a robbery gone terribly wrong? Or was it just somebody trying to throw off law enforcement?
This could be anybody. You just get hooked up, wrong relationship, you bump into the wrong nut job somewhere and something goes wrong.
Stacey's murder rocked this safe, close-knit community, and her friends and family and neighbors have wondered how this could happen to such a loving woman. We're going to do everything that we can to find out and to get justice for her.
It has been 16 years and still no answer.
Please consider her killing a cold case.
Years later, the case is still unsolved.
I've chosen cold cases from across the country and have teamed up with the best detectives to solve them. We're more determined than ever to bring justice to these victims. Make you sweat down here this week.
Don't start.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Steve's sweating already.
Ah, it's beauty out there. It's beauty. I'm Kenny Oldham.
Nice to meet you. I'm Kelly.
Steve, I'm Mike. Nice to meet you. Kenny Oldham.
I got involved roughly 2 weeks after Stacey was murdered, and we've kept working this case through the years. This case is very important to me because Stacey's family, they will never forget about the case. So I'm not going to let them down and do that.
Let's talk about Stacey a little bit. She was 41.
Right.
Grew up here?
She's local. She was a strong person, very caring, didn't have any enemies, very well liked.
So she has 2 kids from a previous marriage. How old are her kids, guys, when this happens?
Emmanuel was 23, Amani,
A little younger?
21.
21. What did she do at Nestle?
A line worker.
General labor.
Does that mean standing on your feet all day, that whole long shift? And then at Dillard's, also standing on her feet the whole day, working the cosmetics counter? Stacey was the breadwinner in her marriage with Charles, and she worked regularly at 2 different jobs to try and keep them afloat. She also wanted to be a strong role model for her 2 adult children, trying to give them a sense of financial independence and a strong work ethic. Tell us about your case. How'd y'all get started with this thing?
February the 12th, there was a gentleman that was walking his dog with his 11-year-old daughter down this field road. They noticed there was a female in a ditch. It was kind of obvious that the female was dead. They called 911. She had slight levels of decomposition, some lividity. She hadn't been there long. I think the coroner determined less than 24 hours.
What is the official cause of death? What'd they say?
Strangulation.
During the autopsy, the medical examiner located hemorrhaging along the strap muscles on her neck and a fractured hyoid bone in Stacey's throat, which are both telltale signs of strangulation. With no abrasions present, it suggests that the killer strangled her with his bare hands, which we call manual strangulation.
So we identified Stacey's body on the 13th, and then on the 15th was when her vehicle was found.
Stacey's car was found in a halfway location between where Stacey's body was located and the house. It was processed by our guys. Nothing odd was found in it.
And then in early April is when her phone and wallet was found in a ditch The phone was waterlogged.
Yeah, and the SIM cards removed.
It's odd that Stacey's body, car, and cell phone were disposed of in separate locations, which made it difficult to determine how and where she was killed, let alone who was actually responsible for this crime. So investigators started with the most obvious suspect, her husband.
Okay, this is Charles Devine. Feels like a Baptist preacher. And I'm Baptist, so I can say that. Let's start with the big picture. How are they getting along?
Well, I believe they'd been married around 3 years. Hadn't been a long time. They were already in separate bedrooms. She had hers and he had his.
Is there any hard information that either of them had actually done any steps in filing for divorce?
I don't think they had gotten to that point. I think it was
just talk. Well, she learned something about him being more in debt than she thought.
There's a phone call between Gwen and Stacey.
Shortly after Stacey's death, Stacey's friend Gwen provided law enforcement with a telephone call which she had recorded between her and Stacey.
The Owen folks, Capital One, some superior law service. I don't know what that's about. Ain't nobody coming in here doing shit.
Oh, my.
Like I said, you don't know a person. And if I can tell anybody, I tell them all. Do your research or you be with anybody.
He even says at some point or another that they had talked about her being with somebody else. He was very jealous, I think.
When the investigators talked to Charles, he admitted to them that he and Stacey were both having extramarital affairs.
So it seems like you guys were at a point where you're seeing other people.
Right.
Was she dating someone else?
Yeah, she was still talking to somebody. You know, looking up on Facebook as a female. I didn't want to accept that.
Stacey was bisexual and having an affair with a woman, which Charles was not too happy about. That woman was investigated and cleared as a suspect, but whether or not that affair played a role in Stacey's murder is something we need to explore. What I'm going to put up here is his whole alibi. Is his alibi confirmed? Because if he's lying about where he really went that day any kind of way, why does he need to?
Stacey was last seen alive at her home at about 12:30 p.m. by a friend, and she spoke to her son on the telephone at about 1 o'clock p.m. According to her son, Stacey was supposed to call him at about 3 o'clock p.m., however, she never did. Phone records reveal that Stacey's phone went dead at about 2 o'clock p.m., and that leads law enforcement to believe she was killed sometime within that time frame. According to Charles, he was actually out job hunting at the time of Stacey's death, but we'll need to verify his alibi, because if he's telling the truth, he couldn't have killed Stacey.
Okay, so now, unknown suspect. What would be the reasons that would point to an unknown suspect?
The wallet is thrown into the...
Right.
Was there money in there? You could argue that.
Purse. Well, her car was stolen. Stacey had no known enemies, but we still need to explore whether or not an unknown perpetrator played a part in this. And while the way the evidence was scattered all over town doesn't necessarily point directly at an unknown perpetrator, it does raise some questions that we need to answer. Did Stacey leave the house to meet somebody we don't know? Was she killed by a stranger? Was it possibly a carjacker or a robber who abandoned their plan? That's a pretty good-looking board, guys. We hadn't even started. There are so many unanswered questions. If Charles killed Stacey, he needs to be brought to justice. And if he's innocent, we can clear his name and find Stacey's killer.
We're going to go see Imani and Emmanuel. They're the daughter and son of Stacey Devine.
Have y'all met him before?
Yeah, I've talked to Imani a couple of times. We both interviewed Emmanuel back in the day.
When you talk to Monty and Emmanuel so many different times, they become family. I mean, 3 years of telling somebody over and over again, hey, we're going to get them, be patient. Hey, guys. How are y'all? You look nice. How are you? And you can see it in their eyes that they want something done, and the frustration of not being able to do that is, it's damaging.
How about you tell us about your mom?
She was very hardworking. She really turned me into a hardworking person.
Did your mom raise y'all by herself?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
She was a people's person. No matter what she was going through, she always made sure the next person had a smile on their face. She always cracked jokes. She was just very lively.
How about disciplinarian? How was she?
Yeah, that.
Was she focused on you more? Is that why you're laughing?
She was a single mom, so you know, like, yeah.
She always told us, if there's anything you ever want to talk about, you know, I'm here.
That's why me and my mom were so close. Like, me and my mom talked about everything. Me and my mom, we used to butt heads and stuff. But like as I got older, she started to treat me more like a friend. If I needed anything, I needed to talk to anybody, I would talk to her before I talked to anybody else. Ever since my mom died, it's really like a big piece of me got taken away. I still haven't found a person that I can talk to the way I can talk to my mom. I remember this day like it was yesterday. That's crazy.
And did you call Charles?
I did.
What'd he say?
He was like, oh, I haven't talked to your mom.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so when did you last talk to her? He was like, we haven't really been talking, so I mean, he really didn't say too much.
He didn't say, I just saw her a few hours ago and everything was fine, which is what you would think he would say.
Yeah.
Right.
Zero.
Yeah.
Zero. That's why I said I didn't like him at all. He was that kind of person, like I wouldn't talk to him. I guess that's why the situation makes me so mad and I don't like to talk about it, and you know, it makes me feel a certain type of way because of that.
But we wouldn't be doing all this just to break y'all's hearts. You know, they can't promise you anything, but we're hopeful, okay?
Right.
Y'all gave me hope.
If you could talk to your mom right now, what would you say to her?
A lot. First thing first, though, I let her meet her grandson.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
What would you say?
I'll just tell her to love herself. I feel like everybody that she's been with, she just wanted somebody to love her.
I think you got these guys properly motivated. So we're gonna go bust our tails and hopefully give you all some news next week, okay?
Thank you.
Emotionally, I don't know how they've lived the last 3 years. They're both sitting there with broken hearts. And I think everybody is really motivated to try and get Stacey's kids the answers they deserve.
I know you shouldn't take anything to heart, but this lady did not deserve what happened to her at all.
Plus, you kind of bonded with the kids.
Yeah.
When Stacey Devine was murdered in 2016, she was in a strained marriage with her husband, Charles Devine.
Hello, ma'am. Started raining right before we walked to the truck. This is Kelly.
Hi, Kelly. Nice to meet you.
We want to talk to her friends and co-workers to see what she might have told them about her marriage and find out anything else that might point toward an unknown suspect as being responsible for her murder.
Tell me how you knew her.
I worked with her at Dillard's.
How would you describe her personality?
Very social. She had a lot of friends. She loved her kids.
Just always had a smile on her face. Super friendly and positive. Great to be around.
She has the sweetest smile and the sweetest laugh. She was precious.
She's very independent. She did not want any help from anybody. You always knew where you stood with women.
Okay.
I knew she was married, and she seemed happy, fine in that relationship.
Right.
So it all happened quick that she wasn't happy in the marriage.
Me and Stacey was friends, and we actually dated a long time ago. Charles hated my guts, and Stacey called me and told me, she said, I'm not allowed to talk to you.
Because Charles did not want her talking to men?
Charles didn't want to talk to anybody.
He was very controlling.
Okay.
Can't go out with your friends. That's
Okay.
what he told her. Probably about a week or two before, she told me he had downloaded an app onto his phone that tracked all her messages.
She was very concerned that he could read everything that come through her phone.
You know, he has downloaded some apps trying to track her, you know, wherever she was going.
Okay. We knew that Stacey and Charles's marriage was contentious, but now we're hearing that he was trying to control her. That's the kind of pattern that I've seen 100 times in my career. And unfortunately, it usually leads to even more trouble and tragedy.
It was just terrible. Every time she came to work, he told me something new. It got worse and worse and worse.
He would cut the hot water heater off so she couldn't have any hot water.
Okay.
They had been living in different bedrooms.
Okay.
And he would like cut the electricity off to that bedroom.
One day she was late for work because he had locked her car into the garage and changed the garage code.
She was afraid of him. We always talked to her about, you need to move out and leave.
There was a night she called me and she was like, Tasha, I feel weird. And I'm like, what you mean weird? And she was on some medicine that the doctor gave her. And she was like, Tasha, my prescription bottle is empty now. And she goes, and I have a glass of water here that he gave me. And I'm like, well, don't drink it if you think he put it in your water.
Right.
It sounds like Charles was harassing Stacey, even to go so far as to mess with her medication, which doesn't necessarily mean that he wanted her dead, but it sure sounds like he didn't want her to be happy without him.
I wish y'all would find the killer, and I wish you bring him to justice, and I wish he'd brought in jail. Because that woman was a good woman, and she did not deserve what happened to her.
So here's the million-dollar question. How solid is his alibi?
In any homicide investigation, law enforcement looks for suspects who have motive, means, and opportunity. Charles actually had a potential jealousy motive in this case, and he had the means, as it appears that Stacey was manually strangled. But according to Charles' initial statement to law enforcement, he didn't have the opportunity to commit this crime.
We know Stacey's phone goes dead at 2 o'clock.
And our speculation is by 2 o'clock that day, she was dead.
Yeah.
Based on witness statements and Stacey's cell phone activity, law enforcement believes that Stacey was killed around 2 o'clock p.m. Charles told law enforcement that he initially left the house at about 1 o'clock p.m. that day and went job hunting.
Last time I had seen her, it was Thursday. I want to say around 1 o'clock when I was headed out.
We need to review Charles' alibi for this time period to see if anything doesn't add up.
Charles Devine tells y'all he goes where when he leaves the house?
He goes to Windmill Rice.
I went to Windmill Rice to do an application.
What time did you get there?
Yeah, about 1:20. I was there for 15, 20 minutes.
And then he goes where after Windmill Rice?
He goes to Workforce to also look for jobs. Checks in, speaks with an employee in the back. He doesn't know a name.
So we can approximate that you got to Workforce about 2 p.m.?
After that.
Okay. How long were you there?
Probably about 30 minutes.
So that would have had you leaving at about 2:30?
Yeah.
And then I believe he says he leaves to go back home.
He says he goes back home.
And nobody's there.
Charles told law enforcement that when he arrived home at about 3 o'clock p.m. on the day of the murder, neither Stacey nor her car were there, and nothing appeared out of order. If true, it indicates that Stacey left home and was killed by an unknown person closer to where her body was located.
You went back to the house, there was no one home. What'd you do at that point?
Changed clothes, showered, and about 3:45 left to go to Motel 6.
Charles claimed that he went to a hotel at around 4 o'clock p.m. to check in and spent the entire evening with his girlfriend and went home early the next morning. Stacey's body was recovered later that evening at around 5:30 p.m.
His phone records will be important at that time, too.
Correct.
As far as where he drove and when he drove?
Yeah.
Charles accounted for his whereabouts, but we sent his cell phone records to our digital forensics expert for analysis. With any luck, those findings will help us to determine if Charles's alibi is actually as rock solid as he claims, or if he had the opportunity to kill Stacey after all.
Okay, so we're headed to where the body was found, right, Kenny?
Yes.
When Stacey Devine was murdered, her body, car, and cell phone were seemingly disposed of in different locations around town. And the big question's always been why? Was the killer trying to throw off the police? Or were there other reasons that might be a clue as to where, how, or why she was killed? As investigators, it's our responsibility to explore every possibility. So we're headed to the different locations to do just that, starting with the field where Stacey's body was discovered 4 miles from her home.
She was 140 feet from the road, and she was in the ditch. Ballpark is right in here.
Yeah.
So how far was she down there?
Basically just a few feet off.
So y'all think car comes here?
I think pulls her out either the back seat or the trunk.
If she was in the trunk, grab out of the trunk, 2 or 3 steps, you're over there.
That road is your only exposure. How busy would that road have been 3 years ago?
Not a lot.
You got nobody looking here at all.
This doesn't seem like the type of location Stacey would come to meet somebody. It's more likely she was dumped here. Also, Stacey's body was fully clothed and revealed no signs of sexual assault, so we can also eliminate sexual assault as a motive in this case.
All right, let's go see where the car got dumped.
Okay.
How far is that?
5 minutes.
Police discovered Stacey's car parked on a residential street, located approximately halfway between where her body was found and her house.
So where was the car?
Then approximately right here.
The neighbor noticed it. Couldn't really pinpoint the exact time or day.
The way Stacey's car was abandoned on the street raises the possibility that the suspect stole it and then later changed his mind. But there's a few problems with this scenario. Based on my experience, carjackers usually come prepared with a knife or a gun. It also doesn't make much sense that somebody would want Stacey's Buick so bad that they'd kill her for it and then just leave it on the side of the road. So we want to take a look now at the last location, where roughly 8 weeks after Stacey was murdered, her cell phone and wallet were found in a drainage ditch.
The phone was located over here.
Shortly after this happened, we had a massive rain.
Wow, pretty good luck.
There were actually very heavy rains in the days after the death of Stacey, and this led law enforcement officers to theorize that her cell phone and wallet may have washed into the ditch from another location.
Can you show us a drain?
When police searched the area, they found a storm drain beside Stacey's house.
This is the house where Charles and Stacey lived at the time.
Where the phone was located over here, this is the quickest route. Throw it down here, and it washes that way, and then out to the ditch.
Considering that Stacey's cell phone and wallet were found so close to her house, it's clear to me that she was killed in her home and her body moved, which is a huge deal.
Nobody else had a key to this house.
Nobody else has got the garage code.
Right.
Based on my experience, home intruders do not move bodies. The only type of person who would actually move a body knows that if the body was found at that location, it would clearly point to them as a suspect. And in this case, that suspect is Charles Devine.
At some point, maybe he took her phone and threw it in the drain, believing that nobody would ever find it.
You would think if you pitched it down there, it would just land down there and plop forever.
Yeah.
He would look down there for anything.
That was very helpful, guys. It all makes a lot more sense trying to keep it straight in our heads. When we first started looking at everything, we were going to consider the possibility that could an unknown person be the one who killed Stacey. We believe that Stacey had no known enemies, was not sexually assaulted or robbed, and was killed in her home. So it feels like we can finally eliminate the theory she was killed by an unknown suspect. Unknown suspect. Is everybody good with taking that off the board?
Yes.
That leaves us with the theory that Charles strangled her at home and then ditched her body, car, and cell to throw off investigators. When you look at Stacey's world, she pretty much has a low-risk lifestyle, right? The only risk factor she's got going on is Charles. But it's one thing to believe Charles killed his wife and another thing to have the evidence to prove it. So we still have a lot of work to do. And if Charles did kill his wife, the biggest question in my mind is why that day?
So what we're doing is we're going back, talking to everybody we've talked to, getting re-interviews with everybody.
We know that Stacey confided in her friend Gwen about her marriage based on the recorded phone conversation she gave the police.
I'm gonna go through a divorce too. I'm not upset, I'm not mad. Everything's gonna fall into place for me.
We also know that on the day Stacey was murdered, Gwen visited her at home where she crossed paths with Charles.
Gwen, this is Kelly.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. We want to get Gwen's impressions of Charles that day to see if that can give us any insight into what happened.
How long were they together before they got married?
Oh, not long at all.
Okay.
Because they got married really fast. She was looking for love. The last guy she was with, he broke her heart. And then she really thought she found it in Charles.
There's a taped phone call that they got where you're talking to Stacey. Remember that?
Yes.
She's telling you that they've been having a bad marriage. It's going downhill. Do you remember?
She was calling me and she was saying she was taking money out of her account for the discount fee. He could be the man and pay the bills. But she was making more than him, and it's just like he was mad about that. But Charles wasn't doing what he was supposed to do with the money. She found out that they was getting them cut off notice and people was calling, and she was like, they're getting mad. So they had problems there.
Okay, because we have to prove and figure out why all of a sudden this day things went so crazy.
And she was telling me that she don't spend about time day alone.
This is the day of we're talking about. What time did you get there?
I don't know if it was 8:30 or 9:30, sometime in the morning.
Okay.
I was doing my hair. And we heard the garage come up. He came in. They didn't say anything to each other, just looked at each other. And then I said, that just don't feel right. And I said, come on, leave with me. You know, she kept saying, no, I'll be okay. And I was going to go ahead and leave. And I told her I was going to call her later to check on her. Because I was going out of town that weekend.
And you called when?
I did call. Okay. I got a call when I was gone. And that's when they called and told me that they found her.
Gwen remembers the tense feeling when Charles arrived home, but according to Charles, he left shortly after to go job hunting, and we know that Stacey was still alive then because she talked to her son at 1 o'clock. So his timeline is still a hurdle in proving that he had an opportunity to kill Stacey.
Have you seen Charles after this has happened?
I seen him at Walmart, and he just took the breath from me. I just stood there. I know he killed her.
We're still waiting on the results from the analysis of Charles' cell phone records to see if there are any holes in his alibi.
We're right down here.
Okay. In the meantime, we have a witness who might have crucial evidence, the lady he was having an affair with.
How are you? Good, how are you? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Just hours after we believe Stacey was murdered, Charles met her at a motel room to spend the night. We want to see if she remembers anything odd about his behavior.
I just want to start by getting a feel of what your relationship to Charles was, if you don't mind.
We met on a dating site. We had spent the night together a couple of times.
At your place, though.
Right. That particular day, he wanted to get a hotel room. That was his idea, and he paid for it.
His idea, he paid for it. First and only time. So y'all get to the Motel 6. Walk us through that night.
It wasn't real romantic. There was a little bit of sleeping that went on, and then he left abruptly that day.
According to Carrie, renting a hotel room was a spontaneous idea and out of the ordinary. If Charles did kill his wife, renting a motel room could have been part of his establishing an alibi, and Carrie was just thrown in the middle of all that.
And after he called me, he was trying to find out what the police had asked me. He said he was laying low and he didn't want any text messages or any recordings of any conversations. And I said, well, if you didn't do it, then why do you need to lay low? Why do you need to hide? Why can't we text? And his answer, well, you know, they twist things around, blah, 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 blah. And then we hung up and I haven't heard from you since.
That's it? That was the last conversation? It's possible that Charles was being paranoid, knowing that he would be a suspect, but it sure doesn't sound like the actions of an innocent man.
I think that's her right there in that silver car.
At the time of Stacey's murder, Charles wasn't the only one having an affair. Stacey was actually seeing a female friend, which Charles knew about and later admitted made him upset.
Was she dating someone else? Yeah, she was. They were talking to somebody. You know, looking up on Facebook as a female. She didn't want to accept that.
This one was cleared as a suspect, but we're hoping Stacey opened up to her about her relationship with Charles.
All right, so how long had you known Stacey?
About 2 years. It was a close relationship. She liked me. I started liking her.
Sure.
And so we started just talking.
Never got romantic?
Yes, we did get romantic.
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Seems like she was having a lot of problems with him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of issues would she talk about?
She was talked about that her husband was beating her. I know she came to work one day with a black eye, and I asked her about that. Right. And she was like, well, you know, he did hit me.
During the initial investigation, Charles Devine indicated he never physically abused Stacey.
We've never had no physical altercations. Never.
But according to this witness, that's a lie.
Other than the black eye, what other kind of negative stuff?
She did tell me one time that he said if she was to leave, he was going to kill her. That's when she started deciding to move out. She was scared of him.
We've heard about Charles' controlling behavior. However, we're now actually hearing about the fact that he became violent and threatening towards Stacey. And even though he was having an affair of his own, it was clear he wasn't going to let Stacey leave him.
It's just sad. She was a good person.
Is it okay that I talk to you then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Stacey's close friend Malaysia talked to her just days before her murder.
Malaysia's Kelly?
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
We're hoping that she can give us further insight into how Charles's harassment of Stacey escalated into violence.
Tell me how you knew Stacey.
I went to school with her kids, Money and Emmanuel, and I just got a test to her. She called every day or every other day just to talk and see how I was doing. I just called to check up on her.
When her and Charles first got together, what was that like? good relationship?
It was a good relationship for probably like 2 to 3 months. And then everything went downhill.
We're trying to figure out here on Thursday when everything went wrong and what made it blow up
I think that day she had to tell me, like, I'm leaving. Like, today when I leave here, I'm not coming back no more.
Oh, we haven't heard that before.
Yeah, she was gonna get a hotel room and stay there for a couple of days. And Tuesday, she was gonna move everything out.
Tuesday.
She was gonna leave then. That's when she was off.
How much do you know from what Stacey told you did she tell Charles?
Oh, she was very different. Like, I'm leaving, and his words was, if you leave me, can't nobody else have it.
Stacey told you that?
Yes.
Malaysia is telling us that Stacey planned to move out the very night she was murdered. First, she was going to go to a motel room, and then she was going to move out for good on her day off. And even more revealing, Stacey told Charles her plan. Unfortunately, she never got the chance to leave.
She was a very loving, sweet, kind-hearted lady. Nobody had a problem with her. Nobody.
Well, this man right here is doing all that he can to put it together, and we're hoping that something good happens, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything else you can think of that we've not talked about or has crossed your mind since?
No, because everything went to him.
Huh.
She didn't get a chance to change her insurance policy back over to her kids.
Oh, that's important. Say that part again, Malaysia.
She didn't get a chance to change her insurance policy back over to the kids.
How did you know that she was even thinking about doing that?
Because she was leaving him. She changed it when she got married. And he knew that she was over it. And when she was like, I'm leaving, I'm changing everything back over it.
According to Malaysia, Stacey was planning on removing Charles as a beneficiary to her life insurance policy. Charles's share of that was $250,000. It seems like everything was crashing down on Charles that day because he was about to lose his wife, his financial support, and his livelihood. It makes you wonder if a combination of anger and greed got the best of him. We know our hard fact is that Stacey's phone went dead at 2 o'clock. So we think for sure she's dead by 2.
Yes.
The circumstantial evidence against Charles Devine is mounting for the murder of his wife, Stacey. But we still need to take a hard look at his alibi. The more we can figure out where he really goes, that's what we care about, to see if we can lock him into lies about where he went that day.
Right. Yes.
Charles Devine told the police that he was out job hunting and came home around 3 p.m. and Stacey wasn't there.
Eric Devil, nice to meet you. We talked on the phone. Great.
We sent Charles's cell phone records to our digital forensics expert to analyze. Hopefully he can tell us whether or not Charles's phone was where he said he was.
In this case, what we're looking for is historical data. So you're only looking for when that phone communicated with a particular cell tower or a particular antenna within the cell tower. So here's the first significant point you've got. At 12:22 and at 12:39, he hits off the tower that's going to cover Windmill Rise.
Is that the last time he's there?
It's the last time he's there.
Okay, so look over here on this side of the board. Charles told y'all I went to Windmill Rise to do an application between 1:20 and 1:40. A whole hour different.
So then, at 12:46, he hits off the tower that's going to cover Arkansas Route 1 between Windmill Rice and Workforce.
He told you he went to Workforce between 2 and 2:30, and now you know bullshit. The cell phone data shows that Charles was at Windmill Rise an hour before he claimed he was, and was on the way to Workforce an hour earlier than he said.
There's constant communications on that phone from 1:20 to 3:10 p.m., all hitting off the tower that's going to cover his house.
So his phone stays home until 3:10. There's your window where everything happens. This is huge. Charles was clearly trying to create an alibi. And now we can show that he was at home during the crucial time in our window when we believe Stacey was killed. It's pretty ironic that Charles possibly pulled the SIM card out of Stacey's phone so she couldn't be tracked. And that's exactly how we nailed him, by tracking his phone. Okay, keep going.
February 12, 2016, 9:53 is where I'm seeing him communicating off the tower that's going to cover where the body is found.
Oh, that's so good. This keeps getting better. Now we can place Charles's phone in the area where Stacey's body was dumped the very next morning. And what does he tell us he's doing then?
He's telling us he's at home.
He's lounging. I like that.
Yeah, lounging. There you go.
But then he's right there dumping her body. That's a heck of a way to lounge. The results of the cell tower examination paint a possible scenario where Charles might have killed Stacey Thursday afternoon and then left her dead body either inside the house or in the trunk of her car. Then he spent the night with his girlfriend before finally dumping Stacey out like a piece of trash in the ditch almost 24 hours later. That's pretty cold. Everything fits. Thank you, man.
Thanks.
Happy to do it.
Now it's time to confront Charles Devine.
We just get to the door, knock at him, and say, "I'd like to talk to you about Stacey's case. You want to come in here and sit and talk with us?"
Yeah, I told him we got the notes in the car.
Okay, slow down, because we're almost there.
Charles Devine is the type of person who probably thinks he's smarter than law enforcement. But we've clearly shown what a poor job he's done trying to cover his tracks. I can't wait to hit him with all these inconsistencies.
I hear music.
Did you know who the TV on we pulled in?
Yeah.
Hey, Charles, are you home? Well, somebody's home. They just turned the TV down. We got here.
Come on, Charles.
It's definitely his car.
Yeah.
Charles, all we want to do is talk to you.
And then we'll come the door.
Try calling him.
Ain't heard nothing now.
I know.
Hello, we are not available now. Please leave your...
Hey, what's going on?
He's not answering the door. He's here.
Yeah, we walked up, the television was on, he's not answering the door, and the car is here.
And he doesn't have a wife who could be home, and he's gone. You think it's him in the house.
Yeah, I bet my life on it. We're trying to figure out where our next step is.
Well, think about it.
I mean, he sees you. He knows you're the police.
You don't have a warrant right now, so he can barricade himself all day.
It's a guilty conscience. That's the bottom line here. People who are guilty hide, and he's a hermit crab right now hiding out in that house.
You got your answer. He's not going to talk.
I'm coming out of that house all day.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Charles Devine wouldn't talk to us at home, so we went to his work the next day, and apparently he called in sick. It's pretty clear Charles isn't interested in giving us a new statement. But we feel like we've built a case against him, and it's now time for us to review everything that we've uncovered. Talking about Charles, all the weird circumstances that keep pointing back to him.
You've got witnesses that can talk about Charles' patrolling behavior.
You know, he has downloaded some apps trying to track her, you know, wherever she was going.
He would cut the hot water heater off so she couldn't have any hot water.
One day she was late for work because he had locked her car into the garage and changed the garage code.
And then you throw into that world those girlfriends. They can talk about their escalatingly violent relationship.
She was talked about that her husband was beating her. I know she came to work one day with a black eye.
Massive amount of money coming.
Money right here, that life insurance money he thought he was going to get half of. I mean, $250,000 he thought was going to be coming to him.
Talk about a motive.
Did you get a chance to change her insurance policy to the kids?
Charles tried to put himself at Windmill Rise between 2:30 and 2:45, and then at Workforce between 1:20 and 1:40. Now you know that's a big old lie. Cell phone data not only blew up Charles's alibi, it put him in the house right during the time we believe Stacey was murdered, and then at the location where her body was dumped the next morning.
Look at his behavior. I've never seen anybody act more foolish, just implicating himself. He's hiding out basically right now, you know, like some little kid that just got kicked out of school.
It's just so points to Charles Devine.
Like a laser. It just points in one direction and you have to follow it.
We've got circumstantial evidence, we've got forensic evidence with the cell phone data, and we have common sense. The only person in this world who wanted Stacey dead was her husband, Charles Devine. Cold cases don't get much better than this. What y'all's plan for the DA meeting?
Go over the facts of the case with them that we know now and get a warrant for Charles Devine for the murder of Stacey.
Go make it happen.
All right.
Lieutenant Oldham and Sergeant McCandless presented the case to the Craighead County prosecutor, Grant DePro, and obtained a warrant for the arrest of Charles Devine.
Charles, you remember me? We've got a felony warrant for your arrest for the murder of Stacey Devine, okay? 3, but yes, sir. On this truck right here.
They apprehended Charles near his home in a neighboring town and transported him back to Jonesboro.
Ashes to ashes, dust into dust. One day it's gonna come for all of us.
How y'all feeling about telling Amani and Emmanuel the news?
I'm looking forward to it. It should be awesome. We finally got enough to put him in jail. I made a promise to Amani 3 years ago when we weren't sure we were going to file charges on this case that we wouldn't stop looking into it, that we would keep on.
All doing okay this morning?
Yes.
Yeah.
How you doing?
So pretty.
Thank
How you doing this morning?
Good. How are you? Yes. How are you?
I feel great to go back now and be able to tell them we didn't quit. We kept working, and we were finally able to get the evidence that we needed to fulfill that promise to her. Imani, you remember 3 years ago? When all this happened, I told you I would find who killed your mama. After all the investigations we've done, thanks to Miss Kelly here and all the new stuff we've got, we got enough to get a warrant for Charles.
I'm speechless. I don't know how to feel right now.
So
like,
happy
it's
right now.
right.
I don't even know how to explain it. Oh my God, you don't even understand.
Right now, he's sitting in a jail cell.
Yeah.
They put cuffs on him last night. It all came crashing down. All these years of him thinking he got away with it and nothing's going to happen to him. Now he's going to pay.
Absolutely. My heart is just pounding so fast. We finally got the justice that we've been looking for.
These guys never gave up.
I'm glad we can do this for you.
Thank you guys so much.
That means a lot, for real. I don't know how y'all did it, but I really appreciate y'all. Because the last 3 years has been hard. I feel like it's not true. I feel like I'm dreaming right now. Man, like, this is something, like, I never expected. You know what I mean? Like, I really had my mindset on, like, my mom's not going to get justice. And I prayed, and God answered my prayers. I can, give my mom what she deserves. I feel like she deserves to be happy no matter where she's at. And I feel like now she'll be happy because she knows that I can finally start the healing process.
Thank you, Mom's smiling right now.
Yeah.
There are cheers up in heaven right now,
yeah,
I
trust
guarantee
me,
it.
I know.
It's been a hard 3 years without her. It has.
I love you.
I love you too. It's hard. And it's like, how can you do this to somebody who has, 2 children and you just don't feel no remorse or anything about it? Like, how cruel can you be? You don't have a mom for anything, to be at your wedding, to see her grandson, to see her children, grow up. It's hard. It really is. I thank you guys so much. I really do.
Yeah.
Good job. Thank you so much.
Being able to deliver this news to Stacey's children who loved her so much is a wonderful feeling, and it's why we keep doing this job.
I'm so happy.
Man, guys, you call me.
Thank you.
Whenever you need.
You call me. I really appreciate you guys.
For more cold justice, go to oxygen.com.